You want to develop your own style in anything you do, but you do want to model something that's good, but it has to be authentic to you. So if you're not a salesy person, then don't be salesy, then find a different way to say or do something, but make it your own way, because that will be authentic to you and to the person, which will give them confidence and you confidence.
Hey, welcome back to the Real Estate Excellence Podcast. I'm joined by Leigh Howe, a trusted Amelia Island realtor with more than 25 years experience, over $100 million in sales in Nassau County, and a reputation for white glove service. With deep expertise in real estate construction, design, negotiation, and investment, Leigh brings a practical client-first approach to every transaction. She knows Amelia inside and out and is passionate about helping clients make smart, confident decisions. Please help me welcome the amazing Leigh Howe to the show.
Thank you, Tracy.
Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I appreciate you coming down. And as a lot of agents I have on, I try to do as much background as I can, and you bring a lot of experience from many different facets of real estate, housing in general.
Yes. So I think one of my biggest benefits in real estate is time. I was sort of coaxed into a real estate career. I didn't wake up one day and say, oh, I think I'll be a real estate agent. That's what I've always wanted to do. I was teaching third grade. I had young children, and my husband decided that we were going to buy this 100-acre parcel. So I said, well, what are we going to do with this 100-acre parcel? And he said, well, I'm going to develop it. And so we had the owner over for lunch. I made a big lunch, and I forgot one of the ingredients, ran to Publix and got a speeding ticket. Got pulled over. They were coming. I get back, and I pull together some sort of like jambalaya dish or whatever. We have them over, and 3 days later he calls and says, even though I've sold all this other property to this other builder developer, I'm going to take a chance with you.
Yeah.
So we sold the first 60 half-acre lots, and then my husband said, well, we should build those last 40, so that's where I began.
Was this gentleman involved in the actual thing? Because he'd take a chance with you, because aren't you just pretty much kind of like writing him a check?
We are writing him a check, but he had a history with another builder developer, and
right.
he had sold
just a
him
relationship.
all the parcels that abutted this parcel. So it was rare,
yeah,
that he let us get into it. So,
right.
Yeah.
Right. At the time, was this something? What were you guys? Let's go back, because let's give everyone a kind of your background prior to you and your husband obviously taking on this big project here. Whether it was getting out of school, but what led you guys? What were you doing at the time? And then how did you morph into getting deeply? Obviously, it sounds like your husband kind of
forced
you. Go ahead.
So I was teaching third grade.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I was a third grade teacher, so I was an educator, and I basically took that job so I could be with my kids during the summer. I said, I was a nurse before that. I managed retail stores. I had sales experience. And I didn't see what my role was going to be in this, but when he got his contractor's license, we built our first 40 homes, and I was the customer facing. Like, I did all of your selections, all of your POs, all of your change orders, saw you through the process, answered all of the questions, learned everything about land use and development and zoning and infrastructure and building and people. I learned a lot about people, and not to surprise people. People don't like surprises.
Well, being a third grade teacher, you learn a little bit about humanity too, though.
True.
Yeah.
And I'm a person who loves giving and connecting with people, and I love kids and animals, all the things. Mm-hmm. And so I was kind of hesitant to take a step into really the adult world of real estate, which is, it's a tough job. You have to work hard.
Well, I think what you did is, a lot of people, as they get into real estate and start to expand their minds and understand, want to do, you kind of started at like the development levels,
The
like
ground level.
Yeah, like that's big stuff, right?
Yeah.
And so what was that? Was that your husband's first project, or was he working for a company that kind of gave him some background on that?
So we had never built anything before. He did commercial leasing. So he was a commercial leasing person. That's how I met him. I was managing a store in the mall, and he was the leasing agent. So we had coffee.
I want to adjust this camera just a little bit because I know you keep wanting to look at me, and I want you to.
Okay.
I don't want your eyes being. You're facing that, and I don't want to interfere with your camera.
I'll just talk right.
Okay. Yeah. There. Is that better? Can you? Yeah.
It's perfect.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Good. All right. So he's a commercial leasing manager. But you guys, this is in Nassau County, right? We're talking.
No, this is in Alachua County in Gainesville.
Alachua County in Gainesville. Okay. So he gets this vision. What years are we talking about here?
We're talking 99 through.
So a lot of growth going on.
Through 2005, and then into the recession, which was, we ended up with houses that were in the parade of homes that we couldn't sell. We had to rent. We had all of these lots. We had bought a parcel, an infill parcel.
So you really went from 99 through a peak, which I imagine you guys thought like, oh my God, I can't, we can't, this is just great. It's coming off the trees. And then all of a sudden the bottom falls out.
We were flipping houses, and then we weren't. And so my husband kept saying, oh, this is a cycle. It's going to, but it lasted. And we ended up sort of renting those houses we had left in that subdivision. And we then took over a subdivision that went into bankruptcy from Capital City Bank.
Yeah.
And they let us do a takedown schedule. We ended up building hundreds of homes in there, but those were first-time home buyers, which was a totally different experience from what we had been selling.
You're tipping into a budget. I've mentioned this before on the show, and it's been a while. I don't think people realize it was 2008, 2009 or whatever, the housing market fell below any previous 50-year low. 50 years prior. So you're talking back to in the 50s to the early 2000s or late 2008, whatever. It went below any low before that.
Truly.
And did not actually come back up to meet that low until 2000. I believe it was 12 or 14. I can't remember exactly.
I think it was 2012.
Yeah, it finally got back up to the 50-year low of the pre. So how much housing went out, and obviously, if you're in construction and building housing, there was, because the reason why I was doing the research was a few years ago when the builders started coming in the problems. And COVID with all the building that was going on.
Yes, all the trusses.
The cost of the houses and why this was coming. Well, what was happening was the lumber mills, the mom and pop lumber mills, and all that kind of stuff. Well, a lot of them went under, and they were consolidated into. There's like 4 or 5, major companies now that are running lumber, but they weren't adding because of the demand of 2020. They weren't adding more lumber mills to meet the demand.
Sure.
So the prices were going up, and their answer was, well, we're not just ready yet because we've got the stockholders basically from 2008 to 2012, 14 lost their butt. They were making their money back, and that's why they weren't in a rush, and that's why the cost of lumber and everything went up. So that I just throw that out there to give everyone perspective, and obviously what you're going through. This, and it's not like you guys had 20 years experience prior to this.
No,
you'd been in there,
in
99, everything looks great, you're running as fast as you can.
5 or
all of a
6
sudden
years.
It's like, okay, how do we manage that?
Yes.
How do you manage what's going on?
So at one point we stopped building for almost 2 years, and we just made payments and we cashed in our IRA, and we did what we could to survive, and we didn't pay ourselves, and we paid the people that worked for us. And then the second time when we came into COVID and all the trusses doubled and tripled, I was already just selling real estate on the island, and we sort of stopped building again and said we were at a point where during COVID we did a multifamily apartment with 6 townhomes and 6 flats, and we were really worried we wouldn't be able to rent it out, but we knew we needed like something that we could survive with. We needed a rental property, and we said, why?
So you built that for yourself?
We built that for ourselves. And we have 2 other buildings, and so those have helped us now, going forward and given us a base. And I've been selling real estate on the island for 8 years, just being an agent, which is great because I don't have the payroll and I don't have the people calling me, I've got the wrong door on my house. No, it's a construction door, or they found something, or they've got the wrong air filter, or their dog is lost, or, there are a lot
Is your husband still, is he still developing?
He's not developing anymore.
Yeah,
No, we've sort of
15
we
years of
cut
stress
ties.
of that, or 20 years of stress of that.
Yes, we still have our construction company, and we could. And I've been thinking about a single family home, but we have not pulled a permit and done that yet.
Right.
So yeah.
So does he has crews, or you just still just have the company?
We just always had subcontractors,
Right.
and we just had the company. But we had, you know, at the time when we were busy, we had a framer, an electrician, and you know, we'd keep them busy. We always had to start another house, and you know how it is, and you have a 6-month interest carry on your builder line and all that. So it's a process, and you know, it's like all other processes. They need systems, and you know, we had a bookkeeper and a couple of superintendents,
Right.
and then we also did a lot of work. We cleaned those houses when they were under construction. And
All right, so let's fast forward. You've been an actual agent now for a little over 8 years.
Yep.
What makes you migrate from doing what you were doing to say, hey, I'm going to actually, you know, step into more of the, you know, I call it retail real estate?
The retail real estate for me is so fun and inspiring because I was bogged down in a lot of minutia, and this way I get to bring, you know, buyers and sellers together, and I love the connection aspect. When I moved to the island, to answer your question, I decided, well, I'm going to get my yoga certification and teach yoga and do something totally different, which I did, but I'm a person who really loves a challenge, and I love to grow and gain knowledge, and it wasn't as rewarding as I had hoped. So
The yoga.
I said, the yoga. So I said, I still do yoga, I still teach yoga. But I said, I am going to do something that I know well, and I know I can help people, and I'm confident in this, you know, realm. And so why am I going to force myself into doing something I don't even like? So
Right.
I'm very happy being a buyer's and a seller's agent. I love real estate, and it just makes me feel every day when I get up like it's a challenge and something new is going to happen. And, you know, I'm trying to more or less set more boundaries.
Well, what
I
is
think
it?
that's a problem for some people.
Your husband got you in it. What is it particularly today that really gives you the most enjoyment in real estate?
Ooh, one thing I would say, providing value for my customers. It's really rewarding when at the end of a transaction, you know, they say, wow, I didn't even think I could do this. You gave me such confidence. You know, we're so happy. And I always tell them, I advise people, and advise is a good word because, you know, I provide information and they make decisions. But they always want your help. And that's a tricky thing because, you know, you don't want to be the person who says you should or you shouldn't, because, you know, that can come back to you.
Right.
When they're just not happy with the place they moved to, they don't like the area, you know, all the things they find out after.
Right.
And you don't want to be the person who, you know, and they will look for somebody who, you know, they feel like
Everyone wants to blame
everyone
somebody.
wants to blame somebody. Yeah. So really my thing is I provide value and confidence for my buyers, and I'm confident in what I do, and that's really rewarding for me. Yeah, for sure.
Let's talk about Amelia Island in itself right now. It's one of those, you were mentioning your daughter's over in Sarasota, and that's an area, obviously, it's been popular for a very long time, where Amelia, Fernandina has been, well, it's Northeast Florida. Everyone traveled over it on their way to South Florida, whether it's on the West Coast or on the East Coast here. Now it's one of those last remaining gems that is, well, I mean, obviously the price point goes up, but it's not Miami. It's not Sarasota yet. It's still, the prices are going up, but it's one of those last remaining areas of, well, I think there's, if you go directly, there's a little island if you go directly.
Cumberland Island.
Not Cumberland.
Jekyll Island?
No, I'm talking about on our Gulf Coast.
Oh, on the Gulf Coast.
Yeah, if you go straight over, it's just that whole area there, up in the corner. Of course, it is Hurricane Alley. That is Hurricane Alley.
That is Hurricane Alley. Yes.
You get caught in that corner, you're caught in the hurricane. So that is a problem. But Amelia is just one of these last remaining gems.
It is a gem
in Florida.
It's a magical place, so it sells itself. You really just have to, you know, take people around and they fall in love. A lot of them came there when they were children, and they come back and they say, we want to buy something here. But really, when you look at Amelia, it's blue collar meets resort. I mean, we have working mills. It's a working man's town. You know, we have an historic downtown, which is such a draw for people. We have beautiful beaches. I mean, we have 13 miles of of beaches. You can horseback ride on the beach, which is rare. There's no driving on the beach. There are places where you can park. There's beach access. There's, kayaking. There's rivers. We, have the Amelia River on one side and the Atlantic Ocean on the other. And it's a magical place. There's only so much of it. So obviously, since COVID, things have doubled and tripled.
Yeah.
So people are always like, wow, I wish I would have bought, but it's still not topped out. And we were below in price point, below other areas in Florida. And I think we've made great leaps in catching up.
The demand has caught up
Yes.
there. Well, you were mentioning a lot of terms there that relate to lifestyle. Mm-hmm. Whether it's horseback riding on the beach or the kayaking and all this. And that's Northeast Florida. It's one of the great things about it, especially if you're a boater. You've got the St. Johns River, you've got the Intercoastal Waterway, you can get out
and
to
marsh.
the
A lot of
ocean.
people love the marsh.
Yeah, and there's all these different things, places to go and just do something different each weekend instead of going to the same spot type of thing. It's just unique. And if you've ever been on the Intercoastal Waterway, when you cross over the St. Johns River and continue going up the Intercoastal Waterway, it just opens up. It's just the preserve there.
It's beautiful.
And it's just, you could just continue all the way up to Amelia and Fernandina on the Intercoastal Waterway, just for you boaters out there. But what are you finding right now as far as real estate? Would you say your mix is, or maybe if you could talk more in greater terms, maybe of the office or in Amelia in general, for the difference of people buying a second home or that investment Airbnb versus a primary residence?
So I would say, 85% of my buyers are second home, sometimes third home buyers. They could be in that transition pre-retirement, 54, 64. And, they want to buy something that's a rental. And then when they get ready to retire, and then some people dive right in and just say, we've got a 3-year plan. We're going to buy something. And then other people are like, this will never be our primary home. This is a secondary home,
right.
Which is most. And I get a lot of cash buyers. So, now with the better interest rates, it trickles up. But our luxury market on Amelia has really upped its game. We have $12 million houses on the beach and all these newfound luxury sort of price points.
Right.
So the price points are greater. So we do really well in that realm, in the luxury realm.
The higher
price points.
Obviously, there's not too many people that can afford a $12 million home. Nope. So you are looking at unique people, maybe whether they're CEOs or maybe they are famous, to be able to afford that price point of home. What is that? And I don't know, where do you say that category that I just described starts? Is that basically kind of like $2 million and up? There's a lot of, you can get a Nocatee and get a $1 million home.
Yeah, $1 million home is.
And touch that house next door. That drives me nuts.
Yes.
I would never do that. I would go live in the farmlands of Oklahoma before I would pay $1 million and touch my neighbor next door. Although my house is at that price point, but my neighborhood's older, so we're a little more spread out. We got at least a couple yards between us. But that very unique, who is buying as a second home, what are they looking for? Is it privacy? What is it that they...
Well, on the island, everyone is always looking for privacy, and the island's 13 miles long by 2 miles wide. So that's rare. And there are the TND neighborhoods like you speak of with the 5-foot side setbacks. And a person in the luxury market does not want somebody on top of them. So it's probably oceanfront. We have single-family oceanfront, a lot of condominiums, luxury condominiums. I just sold one for 3.6, oceanfront, and it's got all the bells and whistles. It's updated. It's private. It's near the Ritz-Carlton. All the things. And when it comes down to it, though, people want simplicity in their lifestyle. They want to just go out and be able to golf or, meet their friends or go to a TED Talk. We have all kinds of things, resources and things people like to do. But a lot of people say we love the beach, but we don't necessarily want to walk on the beach or be out there. We just want to see the beach, So, which I think is kind of weird. I like to be on the beach, but that's really, they want to see the water and it's relaxing and they feel like it adds years to their life. So.
Yeah, well, there's nothing. I grew up on Cape Cod, a half a mile from the, so just like I'm sure you hear, you hear the ocean, It sounds like
I
a
live on
train
the
off
ocean.
in the distance is
Yep.
what it's what you can imagine it to be. But that noise, just that, what do they call that, white noise, I guess, or you'll
Yeah.
call it. It just is peaceful from that standpoint. But they're coming there for the privacy. I want to get down with the agents who are listening. You have this development. You and your husband. You move to Amelia, and you decide to, yoga's not doing it. You get into retail real estate. What starts you to connect? What are you doing at this point to put yourself out there, to let people know this is what you're doing? And then obviously over time, I imagine, I don't know, maybe this happened right away for you. I don't know. You could tell us that you start connecting, because I think there's a lot of agents out there that say, I want to get into luxury, but when they say, well, it's not a price point, it's a service, I say it's a price point. We can argue over that.
It's both. It's both.
It's both, yeah. How do you get into that? Is there a mindset? Tell us a little about what you went through to enter in that, or did it come natural for you? I don't know.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, a
Loaded
lot of
question.
now. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good question. That's a very good question. So I realized, I'm a big believer, don't really work on your weaknesses. Now, if it's a deficit, that's a whole different thing. A deficit, you got to get up to par. But I knew that one of the things that I didn't have was knowledge of the south end of the island. We had a presence there since '99.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, I need to learn this, property on the south end. There's 1,300 acres behind a gate with 21 homeowners associations, and
Wow.
a lot of the luxury property is here, and I know nothing. I haven't been behind this gate, so I joined a brokerage that gave me an advantage there. And from there, I actually listened to other agents when we had walk-ins, and I didn't understand how the whole rental thing worked, and who rented, and how that worked. I sat with them and I listened to the questions, and they were gracious enough to let me sit with them. And you want to develop your own style in anything you do, but you do want to model something that's good, but it has to be authentic to you. So if you're not a salesy person, then don't be salesy, then find a different way to say or do something, but make it your own way, because that will be authentic to you and to the person, which will give them confidence and you confidence. I did that. I put a little ad in the paper, you sent out, and this is prior to COVID, so social media hadn't been the first form of how people shop for property. By the time people come to me now, they know everything on the market. They know at 7 o'clock in the morning more than I do, because I'll get a text and say, oh, we saw this came on the market, we want to see it today. And sometimes I feel a little taken aback. I feel behind. I try to keep up with it. And that's one of my big things is arm yourself with all that knowledge. Know all the properties, know all the things, know the forms, know how to answer all the questions. I didn't know, we didn't have the Sears and the Milestone. You have to explain that we didn't have buyer broker compensation. We didn't have a flood disclosure. We didn't have FERPTA. We didn't have FinCEN. We didn't have all these things that now people have questions about, and you have to be able to answer the questions. And honestly, the best thing you can do, especially if you're a new agent, is ask somebody. If you don't know all you can, but if you don't know, just say, that's a good question. I don't know how to answer that, and I'm going to get back to you.
The first thing you mentioned was I joined a brokerage to help, because you realize, hey, if I'm going to sell on Amelia Island, I need to get behind that gate, and I need to know what's going on. And I would imagine from your previous experience in the developing that you realized knowledge is power, confidence, all those things that you need as a real estate agent. And if you're going to sell those multi-million-dollar homes, you've got to have a lot of confidence, because the people you're dealing with I imagine there's just some eccentric people, which I'm sure you could tell me stories about, but a lot of them, obviously, they are CEOs of large corporations and so forth. They're overseeing hundreds, if not thousands of people, and they got confidence standing up in front of a room and talking. That's not a big issue for a lot of them. They have just a personal, whatever their confidence level. You need to show confidence as well to impress them. And so the first thing you said was join a brokerage that gave you. How did you evaluate that was the brokerage that you needed to be?
Well, that brokerage was behind the gates, and so I went where the luxury property is. I knew I had a base, and let's face it, like I said, my benefit is time in real estate. I was of the age group of peers that would be buying in that price point. So so that right there was helpful in and of itself, because you can relate to other people's experiences. But the big thing is, for agents, and it's unfortunate, but you always have to show your value. You always have to provide, a service and customer service. And a lot of times you might not, agree, and you have to do things that you don't like, just like in every single job. You're always, sort of catering to its customer service, and you want to provide good service and value. And so I try to measure myself so that I have enough clients, but not too many clients. And I will ask for help if I need. Can you go list this with me? I mean, I
want to be more, concierge is a word that I use a lot, especially when I'm talking to lots of, is being, because that's what the service your customers want.
That they expect.
But also they want to feel like you're the concierge dedicated to them.
Truly.
If they're going to the Ritz-Carlton, they want that person, that, I don't know, use a lack of better, the butler type service that person is, or when you go to the fine dining restaurant, that waiter just literally stands there beside the table, type of service.
Yes.
Right? Yeah.
They expect that level of service. And so, I mean, you have to strive to provide that. And, one of the things I've done is sort of outline a process when I meet with somebody. And even after all these years, I still, if I don't know the person, I'm going to meet with them and show them property, I still get a little like, little butterflies.
Yeah.
But, I just...
Am I going to like this person?
And this is a big lesson in real estate. You're not a match with everybody. You don't align with everybody personality-wise. And so you really need to stick to your knowledge and your professionalism, because in those instances, those things will carry you. You just, answer questions and ask good questions. That's one of the things I'm working on this year, is asking better questions. Don't be nosy. A lot of people are private and they don't want to share a lot of information, but relevant questions that will help you and help them understand, because a lot of times they come in, we want single family home, or we want a condo, and then they find out, there's condo fees and there's an assessment and there's this and that, and heck no, we don't want condominium, or we do not want to be on a golf course, and the next thing they turn around and they're like, we only want a golf course community.
Right.
So a lot of times, that's the process. So it could be a one showing, you get a contract, it could be 3 to 5 years that you work with somebody.
Right. Yeah.
Patience.
We've had many that I don't want to be in one of those CDD communities, and then they see the amenities, and that's where they go. Yeah.
And then you try to get the CDD paid off by the seller or the builder, but it doesn't always happen.
To go back to the brokerage, so because this brokerage is behind the gate, so you feel okay, boom, and obviously. I would imagine some of the salespeople were there. Some of them are probably still there. Yeah. What are some of the things that you picked up that you were from either just working or seeing how these other people worked, that you were like, I didn't even realize this, that I need to be able to do this, or just what awed you? One
thing that I did naturally that I want to mention before I answer that question is that I saw agents who needed help, and I asked, can I help you? Can I take care of all this for you and give you half of the... And some of them were in a position where one was kind of going to transition out and wasn't taking any listings. And so I started helping her people. And so I started giving 50% of everything I did, even when I did all the work, to that other agent. But because
it was her referral.
It was her referral, or it was her customer. And we sort of worked it together, but it really was kind of me working it and still giving. And I did that, at least 10 times, where I was like, I just need to get my foot in the door, and I need to learn how this works better, where I'm not the developer, where people aren't just coming to me, I'm having to, go out there and sell myself. So I started gaining people, and then walk-ins, and, just talking to people and getting out in the community. I joined our realtor association, got involved with that. And once you start networking, I'm not a person who says, I do real estate for a living when I meet you. That's not going to be my method, but eventually somebody's going to say it. Now people say, oh my gosh, we see you all over. Well, how do you see me all over? Because I rarely go out at night. But what they mean is, I like to be home because I've talked to people all day, right. And I'm like, I'm going to, chop vegetables for an hour. That is my release. So, but they say, we see you all over. And I said, where do you see me? Well, they see you on Instagram, Facebook, because you have a closing, you have a listing, you have a a price improvement, so it's always out there. So that's really important. And honestly, I had a really good first year, and it's just gotten better and better since then. And now if you have 7 or 8 people who call you their realtor, they say, my realtor is Leigh Howe. Mm-hmm. They've got 7 or 8 people that they're friends with who are also maybe in their realm and their peers, and they bring them down, they meet you, and then they say, and even this week I showed a gentleman, 12 houses, and I worked with his friend, and his friend decided, Amelia's not for us. We don't want to buy anything. We're going to rent. And he's coming to buy a single family, and his friend had a realtor, and he said, my friend, sold this, but I'm staying with this other friend who said that you worked with them for a year, even though they decided not to buy.
Right.
So, you never know, because you're thinking you're wasting your time, but you never are.
Well, again, go back to the luxury client that the price ones are talking about. They have their accountant. They have their attorney.
They have their person.
You want to be their real estate agent.
I do.
Yeah.
And, like I said, I'm not the person, I'm not forthright. I don't come out and say, give me the referral, write the review for me. I'm not that person, but they know who I am up front. Like, even at the closing table, if I say, I may not get my Christmas cards out every single year, but I'm always going to answer the phone when you call me, and I'm going to be there to provide a service for you.
I'm going to go back because I don't know if you answered the actual question that I asked, but I'm going to ask it a different way. That's fine because you gave us a lot of good information there. You mentioned when you you started working behind the gate, that a lot of the clients were your peer age group.
Yes. Right?
But what was it did you learn about your peer age group that you didn't know before? What was that? What was something that you learned there as you entered in and dealing with these? What
really, really surprises me is that, like you said, all these people are CEOs and attorneys, and they've run companies, and they've bought and sold tons of real estate. And then when it comes to the transaction, they seem like they're flying blind. Mm-hmm. And things that you would expect, maybe because we do them all the time and we know like the back of our hand, you would expect them to sort of know. They really don't know, and they really need to be guided through the process from beginning to end. Like I said, people don't like surprises. That's not a good way to go. They like to know what they're getting into. I was kind of surprised by that they really need a lot of hand-holding.
It's actually a really good tip. Don't assume because they are successful that they know like they know everything a real estate agent, all the transactions supposed to do. But I imagine how you approach them in explaining to them, because you almost have to be like as if, well, you probably already know this, but Yeah. Obviously set expectations. This is hey, be prepared for this, be prepared for that. Just want to let you know, you may already know that. You don't want to insult them that they don't know. You want to make it as if they do know, and they'll be like, yeah, okay, yeah, no problem. You know what I'm saying? There's a way you approach it.
There is an approach, and that's part of reading people, and I think that's really important because you have to sort of pick up on all the nuances, on all the little things. Like, I sold a condo to 2 attorneys, and I thought, these people do contracts for a living, and they had every question. I went through the contract with them, section by section, which I never would have expected. I would have expected they would have read it and they would have
memorized it,
been able to understand it.
Right.
It seemed simple to me, but no, they had a lot of questions. And, the timelines are important that you point out, here are all the timelines, and, you call them on the last day of the inspection period. And even if they're going forward, just say, hey, just double checking, I want to just dot your I's and cross your T's every single time, and then you'll still be surprised when things get out of control.
Well, it goes back to what we were mentioning earlier, that concierge butler type service where they have to anticipate something falling off the table and grab it. You want to almost do that with it. Don't assume they know you want to be already setting a lot of expectations and making them look good.
Yes.
Because I think if you do watch these people, even you see them on social media. I don't care whether it's Sylvester Stallone walking down the streets of New York. I've seen him a lot lately on Instagram. He does a lot of Instagram, but how his security team is already out in front. They're already predicting what he's going to do, and that's what you need to do as you're leading them into this home buying process. Right. So let's talk about that luxury client, your buyer broker agreement. Maybe you did just, I mean, I imagine probably a lot of your clients are referrals.
All.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So, but doesn't mean you know the person obviously it's, the past customer says, hey, my friend John, he wants to buy a house. You don't know anything about John and Sally. Walk us down. What if they're coming from outside the area, which I think a lot of agents, we have that happening here. It's Florida. Yeah. What are some of the first things you do? Walk us through the steps to, and like you said, the questions without being too intrusive, but there's certain things you need to know.
Certain things you need to know.
Yeah.
So criteria is a big one. And I used to be more hesitant to ask, like, what's your price point? Because that price point sort of varies. They have a range that they start with, but that doesn't mean that range is set in stone depending on what the property is. But most people don't just say that. Most people don't say, well, this is my range, but if it was the right property. But then you find out by showing them other things that,
I'm sure you've had clients that said $2 million and end up buying $4 million.
Yeah. So the first thing is that we already have a connection because of the person that referred that person to me. Mm-hmm. So, we talk about our mutual connection, and I just got invited to dinner by a referral, and the woman who referred her, I just sold her property, and they just bought a property. So now the people who sold are coming to stay with the people who bought, and they just said, dinner invitation, for all of us. So that was kind of cool.
Right.
And I do try to stay connected with the people, not to the extent where I'm making myself crazy, but I do try to stay connected. But yeah, so the questions that I ask a referral are the same ones I ask everybody, like, here, and I sort of do an overview of the island, like, do you want to be downtown? Do you want to be on the coast? Do you want a single family? Do you want a condo? Do you want a rental? I mean, all those are different categories. And once I get them in a category.
Do you ask one of those open-ended questions? Like, because obviously their friend just bought or whatever, in this case you're just talking about.
Yep.
And just kind of open, hey, are you looking for something similar to, your referral? Do you kind of let them start talking?
They normally, so people like to talk about themselves. So sometimes if you ask just an open question, they'll tell you everything. I knew they were a 1031 exchange, so I knew that going in.
Okay.
The last one. And
that's important to know.
Important to know.
Yeah.
Yes, because there's a time frame and there's an amount, and it's not going to be a primary residence.
Right.
Although, that can happen. But anyway, so I knew all those things going in for sure. Mm-hmm.
Because I would imagine, you mentioned earlier, just to poke again to the agents who are listening, what are some of the things that you tread lightly on? So because obviously you feel might be an intrusive question. One person does and one person doesn't think it's an intrusive question. Because I'm sure you've had some people, you open that with that open-ended question and they tell you their whole life story, right?
Yes.
Everyone who's sick in their family, all the drama that all families have and all that, and then there's the others who just like give you that
little
yes,
tidbit.
No,
Yep.
3-bedroom.
They're very quiet. So what I learned to do, and I've just learned this, after almost 30 years, I just learned recently, like, Leigh, why are you so afraid when you tour a property, before you leave that property, say, well, what did you think of this? What do you really like? What didn't you like? And I did this on Monday and Wednesday.
Yeah.
And I sort of wrote down all the answers, and I got a text from him. He left yesterday, and his whole text was like, wow, I think you know exactly what I want. And I'm so confident. And I'm coming back with my partner, and when we see properties, you're just going to show us exactly what. Now I have this pressure of showing them exactly what he wants. But I know that by me asking those right questions, that he felt confident that I now know, what direction he wants to go, and I can eliminate properties so I can not waste our time. Yeah. And that's a big thing. Don't waste people's time.
They don't
or your own.
Right. So when you've kind of got that criteria, again, talking about this luxury client that you don't want to waste their time, you start narrowing down houses. Is there anything you do a little differently as far as, hey, here's our wants and needs? But like you said, you might got that person that I want to live on the golf course, and then they end up buying on the golf course. Or, hey, I don't want to live right on the ocean because of hurricanes. I want to live off, but then they end up buying it right on the beach. I'm sure all those things have happened.
Yes.
Do you really try to hey, I want to narrow this down. Let's start with 3 or 5, so you're not wasting their time.
One of the services luxury buyers expect is that you have your eyes and ears open and you're looking for properties that might not be on the market. So I have a person right now who they wanted to be on deep water, now they want to be oceanfront. And they'll spend $6 million, they might even spend more. We have not been able to find a property, and I've reached out to all the agents that list, oceanfront properties, all of I put it on our realtor page. I start asking everybody, here's what I need. I need the primary bedroom upstairs and an oceanfront house. Budget is good, can even be better, and just see what I get. And I've gotten a couple of responses. They weren't right, but I mean, I'm doing those things and they know. And then every once in a while, I'll send something that is like, hey, what about this lot on deep water? Because I know they're building a house right now, and it could be in their realm. And then she'll probably say no, and I'll already probably know when I send her stuff what the reply is going to be. But I keep doing it because, I've got to.
Well, you got to get their feedback. You got to keep their boundaries. You got to keep guide them.
Yes.
Yeah.
You have to keep working the process, and they expect that. They expect that you're doing the work, and that you're going to come to them with the right property.
You bring up an interesting. This is a hot topic right now, and that is the whole Compass and Zillow battle going on, and now of course Compass is sort of teamed up with Redfin and that other mortgage company. I used to work for them, so back in the day when they were under the other name. But anyway, about what do you call pocket listings or what these I would imagine in a tight knit community like Amelia. I mean, obviously, someone with your reputation of bringing quality buyers. Do you poke on some of those people and let them know, hey, are you I got someone who might be interested in that house,
So that's kind of a no in an ethical and legal regard. So I can reach out to somebody, and if they have something, they can tell me. But if it's a pocket listing, like in our brokerage, we can't tell outside agents about that listing.
I was talking about particularly actually just like going directly to the actual homeowner.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, making those connections with the homeowner, saying, hey, are you interested in selling as someone that actually loves your house?
Yes, I do have a house right now. I've been trying, and I had one conversation with her at the nail salon when I recognized her, and I said, hi, I just want to introduce myself. And I do have a connection because her grandson lives at the same place I do, so it wasn't totally random. But yeah, I've been watching her house, and I hope she keeps me in mind if she does want to sell it, because I do have a buyer that's a perfect match, and I think it would be a good thing for both parties.
Well, in that area of the affluent homeowners that you have, even sometimes just asking is your way of like saying, hey, I'm a real estate agent. When you are ready to sell, you need to call me, because hopefully you have a buyer at that time and you're doing a deal that doesn't even, like in a day it's sold, right? Yes. I mean, that's the ideal. But in your marketing, are you doing stuff like that to reach out to them, getting a feel, obviously just reminding everybody, as agents should do, that they're in real estate, I'm in real estate, and I may have a buyer for your house when you're ready, so you need to call me first.
I could be better at that. I do feel like that's definitely a method that a lot of agents who are successful in matching a person with a property, they work hard on that. Sort of like I said, my referral business is good, so I'm getting these things, but like I could harvest more of what I want if I did more of that. If I reached out and did more, and truly that would be my method, because like I said, I'm not a person who's going to ask you directly, are you going to sell your house? I'm not going to say that to you. Yeah. I'm going to have a conversation with you and say,
I may have a buyer.
Oh gosh, I have, somebody who's been looking oceanfront, on Fletcher for 2 years now, and they bought a home and are just waiting. They bought furniture with the intent of selling it with the furniture. They're ready to move in,
Right.
So, and that makes the person feel sort of happy and proud about their place, but also would put a seed in their mind, for you to be somebody they call.
Right. All right, let's see. I got some questions that, I often wonder, because I'm going to talk about AI here, because I use AI. It knows my show, ChatGPT, all the transcripts are uploaded. It knows me very well. It reads your bios and helps me, create some good questions. Let's see what they came up with here.
My patterns.
But they say, and there's companies out there now that say they can go in and look at the data, how long someone's lived there for. Obviously, I'm sure if they know the age of the kids and all that, this stuff helps them too, because they're going to be empty nesters. Maybe they're ready to sell. But I often wonder how accurate that actually is. They can make suggestions, but I'm wondering what the actual payoff is. Can they go in and look at that area of Amelia and analyze everyone's, how long they've been in the home, if they've got a mortgage or not, how old they are, all that kind of data, and then determine whether or not, hey, these people might be ready to buy, how accurate that information
That's
is.
a good question,
Yeah.
how accurate that is. I think it's probably more accurate than I first anticipated because Amelia is a destination location, so we are different than other markets. If you look at the trends and the average price point and all that, we don't really follow that. But if they're using information from Zillow and Zestimates and stuff like that, then that might be wildly inaccurate because they're not, real estate is local, right?
Someone's not
Everyone knows
moving
that,
to Amelia to now they may be moving there and say, I'm going to raise my family, but St. Johns County or even Nassau County, or Clay County, they're all good school systems. Your average price point, I would say, in those counties, those people are moving because, hey, the schools or whatever.
Right.
You're the destination. You're the second home. You're like, hey, we're going to retire, and we're going to basically, they're going to pull us out of that house
On
and put us in the
Island, I
ground.
would say that's 100% true. Nassau County is big and the schools are great, but a lot of the younger families congregate off island because of the price point and all the new construction and the communities. They have other kids in there, but I'm not sure how accurate. I haven't delved into that. I did listen to a podcast yesterday where they were promoting an AI thing where they will load all of the information about the house for you in the MLS and press a button and it takes 60 seconds and it's got everything. But then, who's getting the HOA docs and you're still doing all the work no matter what you do with AI. For me, it's like be an authentic individual, even using AI. So take all that and take those systems and those tools and use them, but make sure that it's accurate and that you
accurate and you know how to read it. You got to know what it's telling you.
Yes.
Right? I mean, you're reading this data sheet. Yeah, that was Lyman Stummer who I'd had on a while. He's got a company that is actually doing AI search, so you can talk natural language to it, like you were talking to it, like you're talking to it, and it'll start finding the listings for you. And obviously AI wants to, or his dream is to get it, and I imagine there's others where you could actually go in there and say, hey, I want to live within so many miles of work. I want to be able to pass a Starbucks on the way there. Blah, all that real down to
detailed.
I want to be within 15 minutes of the grocery store or whatever it is, and then it'll really narrow down the listings. Like, this one actually hits all those. You
things. Won't get any.
Yeah,
you get a 0 on the search.
This is actually a great question. I like this one here. What do luxury buyers need to understand about owning on Amelia Island, and that most agents never explain?
Maybe SESA, the Shore Stabilization Program, because it's a cost. If you buy, that on that 1,300 acres, you pay a percentage when you first purchase, which is not a small percentage, which goes to the Capital Reserve Fund. I think they would need to understand, now we have paid parking downtown, which is a new thing. Yeah.
That's a whole nother, they're doing it out here at Jack's Beach.
That's a whole nother thing.
Yeah.
I mean, there's all these little idiosyncrasies, but as far as home ownership, your taxes, I explain taxes all the time, the assessed value times the millage rate, on, and you can do this formula, you can put it in there, and they want to go according to, it doesn't matter who they are, they look at what it was, but I'm like, it's on your purchase price, and so that is a big thing you explain to everybody, no matter who they are, no matter where they are. So Amelia Island, like the turtles, we have turtle season, you have to have turtle lights, things that are specific to the ocean. Shore stabilization turtles. The traffic, there's 2 bridges on and off the island, and if winds get over 35 miles an hour sustained for more than a minute or 2, whatever, they close those bridges. So we've never had to evacuate, and we've had a place there for 30 years. But, I mean, it could happen. So
you want to educate them and let them know these little things are there.
Yeah. And places that might, down by the downtown a little bit, it might, flood 1st and 2nd Street when we get a nor'easter or something. There's little things. But as far as home ownership, across the board, you're going to have, explaining all the associations and the assessments and all that is big for condos. Single family is, a lot simpler, and you get, your wind mitt and your hot water heater, and you do all that, and, you're good.
I'm going to say how it worded here, this question here. Are Amelia Island sellers pricing for prestige or pricing for what the market will actually bear? Because I imagine you're dealing with homes that are, they're custom, but they're in a subdivision. There's so many square feet. But then you also got beachfront property, which, has its own custom price.
So just like that transition we had with the little recession in 2006, this is a transition time. We came out of COVID where everything was accelerated. It was a seller's market. Now we're in a neutral toward buyer's market. We're kind of in a buyer's market. We're falling back a little bit, but still now we have all the new inventory, that comes with spring. So this is a very tricky thing right now, getting people to price their properties for the market. It's not what you paid, it's not what you put in it, it's what the market is telling you it's selling for. And to get people to understand that, you really have to break it down, and there's so many intangibles now. If your place is 1974 and you've never done anything, or if your place is 1974 and you've done the big renovation, that's a very different price per square foot. It's a very different price.
Right.
And so it's hard to get, but people, I would say on the whole, I just did a $150,000 price reduction yesterday. On the whole, are pricing their properties more appropriately. Not, like I will say, that's a reach. That's going to be a reach, and that's going to be longer days on the market. If you don't hit the sweet spot, it's only going to hurt you. But, a lot of people don't want to believe you, and you have to just, at the point where you explain, you have to decide, do you want that listing?
Right.
And,
Have you turned one down?
Can you sell it? Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And I've said it's not the right time when there's 7 other of these on the market that have been sitting there for 8 months. Why put yours in the mix if you don't have to? Now, if you have to, then let's price it right. Let's market it. Let's get it out there. Let's sell it. But if you don't have to, maybe wait.
Do you find some of that are selling in the luxury area? They have time. I mean, they probably own their house outright.
They do have time.
They have cash so that they can go pay cash wherever they're going.
Yeah.
And it's not like, hey, we need to sell this in the next 30, 45 days.
Yeah.
That's not really typically a challenge.
That's a problem too.
Yeah.
Because then what is your selling period? If it is it 6 months, and then at 6 months you're like, ooh, but now your property's been on the market for 6 months, and so it kind of gets a reputation. Well, I wonder why that hasn't sold. And even though it's an unspoken thing, it's there. Oh, this has been there for 6 months and hasn't sold. What's wrong with it? It's human nature to suspect something's wrong with it. And there might not be, but you may have came on the market at the end of the year. I mean, were priced too high. There was another one someone decided over yours, and all of a sudden all these factors ball together and you're sort of in deep water, and you should have priced it right to begin with.
This question, I think, actually plays off a little bit of what we were just talking about. In the current market, are agents losing listings because of commission conversations, pricing strategy, or just weak positioning?
Oh gosh, all three.
Yeah.
Yeah. Pricing strategy, I would say most people take them anyway, and then just have the conversation up front, like, look, if we're getting showings but no offers in 30 days, we're going to have a conversation, we're going to reduce this. And if you can get someone to understand that, but then that's like testing the market. If you're testing the market, you're not going on the market to sell your property. You're testing the market, which you already know what the market is if you had somebody who, gave you all the stuff. So price positioning, I think, is a big thing right now.
When you have that home, is in the right neighborhood.
I have that home.
It's got the upgrades. It's going to sell quickly. But it's important, what is your strategy going in? Because it's like, let's just say $700,000. This is the house. We probably could get 725, but let's list it at 700 and get multiple offers, and we'll probably get the 725.
Yes.
Because that's going to max out.
Yes.
How do you express that to a homeowner?
I express that where, if the more, response that you create, the more activity you create, the better your chances are of getting an offer. And then, a lot of people don't like to swing the bigger bat. They don't like to get in a bidding war with somebody. So that has to be handled really well when you get in that position. But I always tell them, my job is to hold your price up. Like, if I can say, look, we're at or under the comps, and this is a beautiful, and we're going to get this amount, and
you're going to get some attention. You get some eyes.
Yeah, we're going to get some attention, and so I advise you. If it was me, I would come in at ask or close to it because, that this house is worth it. And you have to, education is always the biggest thing, explaining to your sellers, explaining to your buyers, explaining to other agents, working with other agents. Sometimes you have to, they say, how did you get that comp or whatever? And you have that because you've done RPR and you've done a CMA and you've looked at, and this is another thing, young agents, if you have downtime, which you do have downtime, you think, oh, I'm busy all the time, but you don't. If you look at how much you scroll, you have downtime. And during your downtime, if you just delve into little things that, like, look at them differently than you did before, like, oh, look at all the listings that sold in this neighborhood, and like this one sold right away, and like why did it sell, and why did these other ones not sell, and like arm yourself with all those kind of little things that other people don't know. And so when you go in and you say to Mr. Jones, like, this house sold in this period of time, but look, it gives you a basis the more that you know. And so, like, I've been trying to consciously use my downtime a little more wisely.
Well, you bring up a good point. I'm trying to remember who I had on recently, and they were talking about knowing the area, knowing, especially when you're, hey, that house sold or that house is listed, going and looking at the other houses that are listed in the area that you're going to comp and say, yeah, that house is listed at 700, but man, it has 1974 in it.
Right.
Or it's 700,000 and it's been totally renovated. It's like a brand new home. It's important to know that stuff when you're going out on a listing appointment or bringing a buyer and saying, this is why you should pay this much. Do you feel the fact that you are, the island is only 2 miles wide, 13 miles long, and then you're focused inside the gate as your primary focus, and now and have probably been in a lot of the homes in there that you have a good ability to translate to them. So just to pass on to that new agent that you were just talking to, that it's very important. If you want to work a subdivision, a certain area, get in as many houses, go to every open house that you can in that area on your downtime and so you could tell people, oh, I've been to that house. I've been in there. This is why that house sold 3 months ago. I went to the open house. Let me tell you, the bathrooms need to be redone. And
the pictures look great. If it's unoccupied, do a preview. Like, I mean, if it's occupied and somebody has to get out and you're just going in there to see the house, it's probably not fair to the seller and not fair to the seller's agent. But, if you can get in, go ahead and get in and do a preview and preview these houses and start to add up. Like, I've seen a lot of the houses in all of the areas, and like, I showed 2 golf communities. We call it OTB, over the bridge. So in Yulee, which is a great area, and I've sold, I sell everywhere in Nassau County, not just on the island, but my expertise is definitely on the island just because that's where my business is concentrated. So I do keep myself updated on all the other areas, though, for sure. So
have you noticed, it is a question, and I think I've seen this since 2000, obviously 2021, you stuck a sign in the yard, anyone could sell it, right? But I've seen agents who were doing well then are flatlined, maybe have actually gotten out of the business since then, where other agents have actually thrived. When the rates went up in May of 22 is when the rates, gone up, and it kind of shook the market a little bit. And now you're having to, sit down and do the buyer broker agreement, which we know there was a lot of senior agents that stepped out for that. Yes. They didn't even want to do that, which now agents, which I think is true, are making more money because they're doing buyer broker agreements, right? But have you seen that in your area, a separation of really the agents who are, doing the little things that you're talking about, utilizing your downtime, that type of thing, versus the other agents who were sticking the sign in the yard? Now that it doesn't, it's not coming as easy as it was before.
No, it's not easy. A lot of the processes and systems are simple, but they're not easy because you say you're going to reach out to 5 people every week. Well, that's a simple thing, right? But it's not easy because you have to make yourself do it and consistently do it. So for definitely, you have to follow all of the things that you do with the systems, for sure. More questions? More,
because we actually covered a lot of these, which always happens just in our natural conversation. This is actually really good for someone who wants to get into luxury. I think this is actually a really great question because I bet you handle both ends of the extremes. The question is, are luxury buyers making decisions based on emotion, or are they more analytical than ever right now?
For the most part, analytical, because of the nature of the buyer, being a professional, being an experienced buyer. Nobody wants to buy overpriced. No one wants to buy over the market. Although
even when you have a lot of money, you still want a deal.
You still, and especially when you have a lot of money, you're probably more diligent about buying, something that's appropriately priced. That said, there are times when people do spend more money. If that's where your family is and you work from home and you're going to live there and you've waited and you need a house and it's a house is, an asset, really, not an investment. So, yes, you can build equity, but really it's an asset. And if it fits, you might spend a little more, but in general, luxury buyers are very cognizant of the money they spend and what
unless
they
the
spend
wife
on.
demands it and the husband's like, whatever.
Well, and that's another thing, but then then one or the other is usually the negotiator who says, look, and you know what? I don't think that sellers now, they don't want to, indulge in making 3 times what they paid for it. They understand. If you explain to them, they understand what's fair and what's not, and people are turned off when somebody buys something and then within a year they sell it and they price it for $300,000-$400,000 more and they've done nothing. They're kind of like, that's not my thing. I'm not going to buy somebody else's mistake,
Yeah, I laugh at those situations when people tell me those stories. It's like, you just bought it last year for this. Now you want to sell. I'm like, okay, that's one thing if you bought it in 19 and you're selling it in 20 or 21, but 24, 25 now, because the great thing about AI is I went in there and said, hey, here's Leigh's bio. She's in Amelia Island, blah, blah, blah. Let's ask some specific questions about Amelia Island. And it brought up some Zillow. I didn't even ask it. It brought up some Zillow stats. And I think in the general area, I don't think it narrowed down. I would be shocked. But in the general area, the actual average price point is down just a couple percent than it was a year ago.
It is. Our price points have fallen. I think Jacksonville fell more, but we fell 15%. Our price points came down, and that's the supply and demand. We were in that market, but I don't know. You're probably seeing with interest rates going under 6. So
they're bouncing all around.
They're bouncing all over. But every time they go under 6, people are like, "Woo! Interest rates are under 6." But we're not going to be in the 2.8 or the 3s. We're in a good market, and if you look historically over 20 years, what it's always been. We're under the historical average of 7% or something like that. Yeah. So, that's another thing. Know your lenders and know your financing and know how loans work and what's available to your customers. And if you don't know, definitely connect them with somebody who does.
What do you do personally? Just speaking to the agents that are listening, what have you done over 8 years to make sure you're at least staying abreast of what's out there? Because the loans have changed.
They change all the time.
Products come out as it's all based on risk and what willing to do. I imagine you have some Airbnb people coming in buying with these DSCR loans and so forth. And especially in an area that you're in, or if you're down in St. Augustine in Volano Beach or St. Augustine Beach, you have a situation as well. You've got some beach houses that really rent for good money.
They really rent well.
And how important it is to help a buyer match it with the loan product is, hey, having a history of what this house is actually rented for.
Yep.
It's important, to educate your home buyers. Hey, if you're going to own this house and you're going to Airbnb it, make sure you keep your records because it's going to make it more valuable if you were to sell it in 2 or 3 years.
So we tout when something is a good renter, 120. I had one last year that was $160,000 a year. It was a 2-bedroom condo, and they rented. It was called a lock off or a condo hotel. They rented both sides separately, and that was a big thing. I put out 4 years of rental information. Now we gather that right when we get the listing. We get all the rental information because the buyer has a right to see all that when they're purchasing something. And then, it gets tricky because...
Especially if you're selling it as an income-producing property.
Yes. Yeah. And it gets tricky because, do they honor the rentals that are on the books? Do they stay with the renter? And what is the rental company's policy? Is it you have to give 60-day notice or a 90-day notice? That affects your closing. That affects the person and a lot of that. The specific products that are available for rentals, I'm not that familiar with the DSCR.
It's basically saying it allows someone you're going to put some money down. Can you get away with 20%? Yeah, but if you're really a serious DSCR buyer, you're putting 30 or 40% down, because 20 is not quite going to get you there. From the standpoint, what they're looking at is, hey, what's the loan, the cost of the, principal, interest, tax, and insurance, the fees, all that stuff. What's that going to cost versus the income that might be coming from that property, whether it's proven or we're just sending the appraiser out there and they're doing a 1007 rent schedule. Say, yeah, that house will rent for $3,000 a month, and depending on how much you're putting down, maybe if you're putting a good amount down, that payment might be $3,500, and you're okay. Right. If you're not putting as much money down, then they want that number to be below what it could rent for. And it's a credit report. Show me your cash, and we're going to order it. It's a very simple loan, and if you are putting a good amount of money down, those rates are competitive with a regular investment loan where you're documenting your tax returns and everything. Okay. So definitely someone who's cash. Let's finish up with this topic here, because I think it's important, especially in Northeast Florida, or anywhere in Florida actually, is the condos. You've mentioned a couple times that you've had some luxury condos.
I live in a luxury condo too.
Okay, so what is important? An agent out there who's maybe new in the business, maybe hasn't sold a lot of condos. What are the things that they need to know, not only to tell a potential buyer or maybe in the seller when you're selling it, but also, especially if someone wants to borrow against, get financing for that condo. What are some of the things you should be doing up front, maybe even before you actually list the property?
Yeah. So there's a little blacklist, and there are a couple condos on the blacklist, and so, they won't be financed. We do have these lock-offs, which, some companies are adverse to financing because there's a liability, because
I'm familiar with the Latira condos in the King and Bear. They have the lockout room.
Yeah.
My wife and I, we own 6 of them down there. We love them. Yeah. But we can finance them with the right money down.
Yes.
Short-term rentals. You can, if you want to rent that lockout room for the weekend, you can do that.
There's one condominium specifically I'm thinking of right now where there's a problem with the windows and doors, and there's a problem with the insurance percentage
for the whole building.
And so, no one's financing those. You can only do a cash deal. Even when you do a listing, it's like, we can only take cash until this is remedied, until they get the right percentage for their insurance.
Now, is that due to poor construction, or over time the windows now are not meeting?
It was due to the property owners making a decision for themselves, but not realizing when you're a future seller, this is impactful. So it hasn't changed yet, but I think it's in the process of changing. And then,
so the association had new windows put in at one time and
didn't No, they don't have the proper insurance. They don't have the percentage of the insurance.
Okay, which is now a huge factor.
A huge factor, yes. Yeah. And then, insurance is a big deal, which all of these buildings have a master policy, which is usually in your monthly condo fee. And so as far as financing, that Sears and the milestone, that's important too, because a lot of people won't take a chance on something, that's gone to a milestone 2. And, they're like, this is maybe too risky for us. Now, big lending institutions, might, but the smaller ones probably are going to shy away. So, you got to know what you're buying, and you have to know what the condition is of what you're buying, and you have to know the specific things that would prevent you from getting a loan, because don't try to get a loan if it's not.
I imagine you're very familiar with a lot of the complexes there. But if you were what you know now, and then someone in a condo association, if you've never sold anything and you don't really have knowledge of, as an agent, what are the things? Someone says, hey, I want you to come over and list my condo, or the buyer says, I want to go look at them. What does an agent need to know to make sure they're buyers?
Well, you need to know if there are assessments, and sometimes even by condo law in the state of Florida, you can't just ask for information. It has to come from the property management company to the seller. We do have a lot of them on file just because we sell so many all the time, and we update all the time.
Well, it's valuable.
It's valuable. Yeah. And so that seller needs to provide that information. A lot of times they don't even know how to get on their link, and they don't know where to get it, and they don't know if the milestone's been done or the Sears, and they have no clue. So a lot of times, and I don't mean that like uninformed, it's just that's not what they deal with. Somebody else might deal with that, and they don't even know how to get it. So you need to know all that. And I ask people who, I have other agents in my office, and I always use for resources, and I'm like, you sell at this place all the time, what do I need to know? And I talk to them, then I might find out something, and I have to dive in a little deeper just to be thorough.
Yeah.
I want to be thorough. Before I go there, I want to know, like, what the assessments are, what all the ones sold for, why this one sold for less, and why this one said, well, we priced this $45,000 less because it needs a window package. And I'm like, there's only 4 windows. Like, like, this doesn't make sense. And then I try to find out why. I am a curious person, so
you never know what it uncovers.
You never know.
You have to ask the next question.
Yeah, so, surprises happen all the time.
Oh, yes.
So you don't.
Well, from a lending standpoint in Florida, there are a lot of lenders who do not want to lend on condos in Florida. Mm-hmm. It's not the same as a single family. So agents that are listening, condos are a slightly different animal than a single family home or anything else that you might be selling, because we have to approve the association is healthy. And these insurance, for instance, the thing that comes up commonly is, did they have they call it an appraisal, but it's an appraisal on the entire complex, what the value of it, and is the insurance matching that? And that has to be updated now. It's every 36 months. And did they do it? And, now I had one, the appraiser was out of town. It was a one-man show person who was certified to do this. We were able to get, because our condo team here, fortunately, is very good, they went and got a letter from the insurer saying, yes, we are regularly checking this up quarterly and updating the policy quarterly or whatever, and we do believe it is covered. And we took that's the lender's choice. A lot of lenders would say, you don't have it, we're not doing it.
Right.
And I've gotten deals that have fallen in my lap. So that's why I want to stress, don't be afraid of condos. However, you do need to go in and make sure you get access when you're dealing with the seller, get the seller to help you get all the documents.
All the documents.
We will actually pre-approve the condo complex. So if you're listing that condo complex and you don't know if is it approved for Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac and your conforming loan limits and all that stuff, get us the docs. Our condo team will go in, or if they're already approved, like I just did one, I'm doing a refi, and once she went in, just, oh yeah, that's already approved until 2027 or something like that. So you could find out these things, then you know what to list on the listing. Say, hey, you can get this type of loans, or I'm sure in this one complex you say cash only.
Cash only.
Yeah.
For now.
Yeah, because these HOAs and condo associations, they like to get in lawsuits too.
Oof.
Yes, which makes things difficult. So now, how big the lawsuit is doesn't necessarily it's going to run. If it's a small lawsuit and they're like, oh, they got plenty of money. If they lost the lawsuit, it's going to cost them $40,000. They got $400,000 and no big deal. It's not going to put them out. They'll go ahead and approve it and move on. Again, but the other lenders won't take that risk because they don't want condos in Florida, so they don't have a condo team that will prove them.
Yeah, it's good to have a condo team.
You got to have somebody.
Got to have a lender who has a condo team.
You got to have someone who's dedicated to knowing
condos.
Knowing
it's
condos.
more complex. It's a lot more complex than people think.
You mentioned earlier why you love real estate. I usually conclude with that question, but you were on that topic. Anything you'd like to add that we haven't talked about?
That's a good question.
Well, I'm going to ask you this question. Why, because this is going to cut a good reel, why should someone choose to work with Leigh in buying or selling in Amelia Island?
That's a good question. Well, I feel like my strengths are connecting and knowing my customers, evidenced by the text messages I just got yesterday. And the other strength I think I have is I'm pretty straightforward. I'm going to be honest with you. I tell a lot of people not to buy property. And I like to build a relationship. I like to build trust. I'm very confident in what I do, and I like my people to be confident in their purchase. I don't want to run into you in the grocery store and you say, oh my gosh, the worst thing I ever did.
I can't believe you showed me that property.
Was buy that condo because, I didn't know this and that and the other thing. I'm very thorough. I'm detailed. I'm diligent. I'm persistent. I'm patient. And, I really take a lot of pride in doing what I do. And as a career, I'm not a side hustle realtor. Mm-hmm. I really do take pride in doing what I do and, helping a person find a property and connect.
Well, you sound like, just in our conversation, you've got your island, and you've got your island, and you've done your due diligence to try to know everything that you possibly could know. You know what's behind that tree over there, type of knowledge.
Hopefully, there's a lot of things I don't know, and a lot of a lot of things that happen that you can't anticipate. And the other thing that I do that I've done well, I feel, is manage a situation. When situations arise that are unexpected for everybody, it's like when I learned how to fly, when something goes wrong, the first thing you do is fly the plane. You don't stop flying the plane and figure out what's wrong. You manage the situation. And, it was my daughter was getting married, and it was the night before her rehearsal dinner, and we were all scurrying around. We were on the island. We had to load up to go to Jacksonville, and I had to do a walkthrough, and it was 5:30, and we did the walkthrough, and I had pre-walked through because I'm like, oh, we're not going to have any problems. This is good. Well, she comes in, and the seller was elderly, and she decided to spackle the walls when she took down her art, and there were big clumps of spackle everywhere. And the first thing my buyer was like, these walls are not paint ready. Well, nowhere in the contract did it say walls need to be paint ready. I knew she was going to paint. I said, no problem. I'll get the painter here. Your moving truck doesn't come till noon. And I'll have him sand and smooth these walls to be paint ready. Well, she was irritated. So we walk into another room, and they had moved a couch, and there was a big stain on the carpet, which nobody looks under and moves a couch when you're looking at property. So I said, well, she says, well, I want that carpet taken up. And I said, okay. So, now we have got a couple things. Well, now she's so irritated that she doesn't want to close. And I'm thinking, I got to get back and pick people up. So I call the seller's agent. She comes by. She's on her way to dinner with her dad. And then my buyer proceeds to just be irritated with both of us, sort of fussing at us, like really fussing at us. And so she says, well, I need to ask the seller, maybe we can do a credit. Well, she couldn't get a hold of her, blah, blah, blah. Finally, at 11 o'clock at night, she gets her. She agrees to the credit. Well, now we have to do an addendum. Now we got to wait for the closing. Well, so I go to Jacksonville. Next morning, I get a call, and the closing attorney had gotten the signed addendum and everything, but the seller's agent didn't get it back somehow. So I said,
the seller hasn't signed yet.
The seller signed. She finally signed when she got to North Carolina, like in the middle of the night. But now it's not back to the closing attorney, so it's not, it's not. So he can't fund because he doesn't have all the information. So now the seller is standing at the door of the property, the seller's agent. Well, the moving truck is there, my buyer's there, and she won't let her move in. Like, literally won't let her move in. And I'm like, I'm decorating for a rehearsal dinner. My daughter is like so irritated. She's like, it's my wedding. Are you on the phone with Yeah. Well, anyway, 2 hours later, I got it all remedied. And so Sunday night, I checked in with her, and I said, geez, this is... And they went right online and wrote me a 5-star review and everything else. So I guess I managed the situation well, but it surely was, one of those experiences where you think everything is perfectly planned, going right, and then, there's an unexpected behavior, and you just got to stay patient and manage that. And I think that I'm good at doing that.
You didn't take it personally.
No.
The stuff hit the fan. I think this obviously it sounds like the buyer, your client, realized you didn't know the stain was under there either. No. And you had no control over the woman spackling the wall after she took her paintings off the wall. No. So it's like
still my responsibility.
But you did your responsibility, which was remedy the situation.
Remedy.
So both parties were happy. And
everybody was happy in the end.
That's you kept flying the plane.
Yeah.
That's what you did. That's actually a brilliant analogy there. Keep flying.
Can you imagine if you stopped? It's like,
yeah, I mean, you could.
Hey, let me stop and figure out what's going on.
I'm sure it stressed you a little bit, as all of us do. But the patience, and like you said, that's one thing we unfortunately didn't get to talk about today was negotiating. Yeah. But that was part of the negotiating in there. And in the reality, I think Kim Knapp said it very well. I think the first time I had it on. And when there is that little negotiation going back and forth over, $1,000, I don't know how much money did they actually? $1,500. Are you going to walk away from this for $1,500? Mm-hmm. You've gotten this far. You're basically your emotions or everything are already in this new home. The other lady's already moved out, and you're going to freak out over $1,500. Relax. Let's see if we can,
everybody wants a win, though. You know that.
Yes. Everybody
wants a win. Human nature.
Paint it, spackle the walls. Well, I mean, at least she was nice to prep the wall. She thought she was doing something nice.
78 years old. She thought she was being kind, and she was
filling
the
holes. Yeah,
felt so bad. She was, not my seller, but I just felt so terrible.
And your buyer probably was going to replace that carpet anyway.
Always going to paint. So she had to have someone come in and and there were dark colors in there, so that was going to be,
It reminds me, I forget which book it was with Ryan Serhant. I think it might have been his Big Money Energy. Where
I haven't read that.
Yeah, he talks about this client that he had, selling these multi-millions of, units in New York. And I guess when the buyer went through, they had a personal, blanket or something on one of the couches. It was over the, like we all do at our couch, have a blanket. And for some reason, the buyer, I don't know, I guess it was caught their attention. They're like, oh, I'm not buying it unless I get that blanket. It was almost more of a, do you really want someone else's blanket? I mean, really?
This just happened to me.
Oh.
But not a blanket. It was a little pewter statue called The Gift. And I had to source that for him from the artist who's 82 years old and who stopped making them. And I had to get the seller to get in touch with him. And then I had to get in touch with him. Oh, yeah, he paid for it. It was $4,000. But there was that one thing that all the shelves were filled with these glass things, but it was that one. He's like, I need that. And that was the one thing.
I'll buy the house, but he's got to give me that or get me one.
They didn't give it to him. He bought it. He just wanted it. And she said it was a wedding gift from my husband. It was excluded.
So it actually had
It was in the contract. It was in it was excluded from MLS from the very beginning. It was never included in the sale. But he really wanted it, and he moved forward because we sourced it and found it for him.
It's out there. Leigh, I appreciate you coming on today.
It was so fun.
Great conversation. Yeah. And so anyone looking to buy or sell on Amelia Island, obviously all Leigh's information's in the show notes and on any the social media that you see her stuff there, or obviously the website tracyhayespodcast.com, where all of Leigh's information, and we'll have a blog in there talking about her and selling in Amelia Island. But I appreciate you coming on.
Thank you so much for having me.
This may be it for today's episode of Real Estate Excellence, but we both know your pursuit of excellence doesn't stop here. To connect with the best of the best and really take your skills to the next level, join our community by visiting tracyhayespodcast.com, where you'll meet more like-minded individuals looking to expand their inner circle and their personal experience. That's available at tracyhayespodcast.com.